Hey there, everyone, and welcome to the Star Wars Rebels After Show here on AfterBuzz TV, Season 3, Episode 2, or 1, depending on how you're counting, since we just found out that last week's episode is technically being counted as a movie in some places. We'll be breaking down the episode and telling you all of our thoughts and predictions for the future in a moment, so stick around.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
I told myself I was going to say the episode title this week because I totally forgot to last week. And then I was like, oh man, the last week was considered a movie. What is this?
Yeah, no, we were just so thrown off by the whole numbering situation.
Yes, exactly. So technically, apparently, Steps into Shadow is a movie. And this week, the Holocrons of Fate is Episode 1. I don't know.
Question mark?
Yeah,
maybe?
I
don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were mentioning it earlier. What a delightfully nerdy title.
It is the Holocrons of Fate.
Oh, this is gonna be fun.
It's going to be a great time. Here we are, hanging out. I've got Megan with me. Megan, where can people find you on the internet?
You guys can tweet at me at the Menguin. That's TheMenguin.
And I'm Emma Fyffe. I can be found all over the internet, wherever Emma Fyffes are sold, at my name, Emma Fyffe. I really feel like I should have a lightsaber right now. There should
feel
be
like
a battle happening.
I know. I kind of feel the urge to fight something.
I know.
I don't know who or what, but somebody needs to be fought right now.
I totally agree. And I mean, this is the thing, is like, the prequels don't necessarily get all that much love, but there were a couple really great things that came out of the prequels. Number one, this song.
Absolutely.
And number two, Darth Maul.
Yes.
Who was heavily featured in this episode, though no longer Darth. He's simply Maul.
Just Maul.
This is still happening. For everyone who is watching us live, you can tweet at us using that hashtag ABTVRebels. We will be monitoring that if you have any questions, thoughts, etc. that you want to share during the episode. A lot of people shared stuff with us ahead of time, which we'll be addressing closer to the end of the episode. And we do also have that live chat on the YouTubes. So if you have any things you want to say there, we're there too. Megan, what did you think of this episode? I feel like very... Oh, it stopped. I was like, with the music... Oh, there it is. I was like, I feel a lot of pressure to, like, get really, like, emotional about this episode.
Intense.
Yes.
Well, just like this song is intense,
yes.
The series is intense.
It is intense.
It hit the ground running with this episode.
Seriously.
The second he walked into the hologram, into frame, I was just like, damn, they did not waste any time. It was like the series just smacked me in the face with like, hey, you know that thing you thought was going to be like maybe 10 episodes in? Nope, here you go.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, I mean, we saw him all in the previews for this season, so I knew we were going to see him. That was not a surprise.
Yeah, that wasn't a question.
And there's no way that they were going to bring him back at the end of last season and then be like, you know what, we're done.
No, I mean, what purpose would it serve to bring a character like Maul back?
Right.
To not kill him off and then just let him wander the universe? No, that's pointless.
No, totally. But I was surprised that he came back quite so quickly.
Yeah, I kind of felt like we were gonna have a few more episodes with like family stuff, or a little bit more of Thrawn.
Yeah,
because we just got introduced to him too, and it's a really good way because I think probably because so many people were excited for Thrawn to come back, it was an important reminder, hey, Thrawn's not the only thing we have going in this universe right now.
Absolutely. Well, and I knew immediately too, like even though, yes, like before I saw the episode, I had heard buzzings about the internet that Maul had returned in this episode, but even like in that scene at the beginning when Hera broadcasts the transmission and they're like, Hera, we found out like there's another Inquisitor and he's after us and he knows where the ghost is, and she's like, yeah, it's not an Inquisitor.
Yeah, Star Wars Rebels is really good at it's good at the slow build reveal, but it's also really good at the abrupt villain introduction.
Totally.
Like, even when they first introduced the Grand Inquisitor, it was like, hello, you've fallen into my trap. I'm the Grand Inquisitor. I'm gonna kill you now. And here, it was very similar. It's like, hello, remember me? I'm Darth Maul. I've captured all your friends.
Yeah.
Off screen.
No, totally true. But I thought it was super, like, I thought the interactions between the Ghost crew and Maul on board the ship were super interesting.
Yeah, it was extremely compelling. I almost wish we had gotten to see him take over the ship.
Sure.
And so because it just felt so jarring for him to be like, oh yeah, they're all captured, because we know they're all badasses.
Exactly. Well, and I mean, basically, you know, so by the time we see him, he's already on the ship and he's already captured the crew of the Ghost. And they're all just kind of in that little like common room area behind the sort of pilot cockpit. And or the bridge, it's probably more appropriate. I don't know. It's not that big a ship, but yeah. And I agree. It's like, how did we all get here? And especially because when they were being held captive, I mean, what else can you really do? But they did all seem pretty like calm about it.
Yeah. It's one of those things where they're already formulating a strategy to get out of this scenario, and flying off the handle isn't going to help things. Although you have to love Hera, you know, even when their ship has been taken over.
Yeah.
He's like, would you please give me a tour? And she's like, I can show you where the airlock is downstairs if you want to show yourself out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, there was that very creepy scene where he kind of like read her mind that was extremely uncomfortable.
Oh gosh, yeah, it was like the Kylo Ren torture scene in The Force Awakens.
Yes,
when he's torturing Poe. Like, yeah, no, anytime you use the Force to like torture someone and extract information, it's always like, oh, this is so uncomfortable.
Yeah. Timberwolf in the chat says, I loved the scene where Maul tapped into Hera's mind, and Xehanorto wrote out the entire quote for us of, I don't suppose it would be rude of me to request a tour of your ship, would it? Well, the airlock is down there if you want to see yourself out. So good.
And then you have to hand it to him too in return. Like, that wasn't just a funny or throwaway line. He ended up using it.
Absolutely.
Just like, oh shoot.
Yes, Kiki Lopez. I was just about to bring that up. So when Maul was reading Hera's mind and was like, oh, you know everything about Kanan Jarrus, or should I use his real name? And before he even said it, I just got like chills. I had a moment. It was horrible, but it was awesome. And yeah, so if you guys have not read the Star Wars Kanan comics, I mean, like, make sure you're in a good emotional place before you read it, because it's like real sad.
He's had a hard life.
He has had a very difficult life, but yes, they're very, very good. And yes, so of course he was, once upon a time the Padawan, Caleb Doom. So yeah, it was really creepy that Maul knew that. But I mean, he knew it because Hera knew it, and I want. Like, I just need more, like, Hera and Kanan, like, past adventures.
Yeah. Because they've been through so much together, you know, again, to the point where she knows everything about him. And they had this wonderful working relationship together, you know, before the series started. Yeah, you do kind of wonder, like, hey, I kind of want some more backstory there. Can we get more of, like, their adventures and their romance question? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, and just because where Kanan is by the time we get to Star Wars Rebels, and he's so there's a lot of like, I'm pushing that past aside, I'm putting that behind me, because I mean, you know, basically he lived through the clones like going crazy, basically.
Yeah, and he was basically the cowboy Jedi for a long time. You know, he wouldn't use his lightsaber; he would use a blaster.
Yeah,
lightsaber's kind of a dead giveaway.
Yeah, totally. But so there is a lot of baggage in his past, and to see Maul just dig that right up, like straight out of Hera's head, was just so uncomfortable.
Well, and especially because there's this seemingly competition between Kanan and Maul.
Sure.
You know, in terms of like, oh, my apprentice. You know, they basically, Maul wants to take Ezra as his apprentice. And so digging up any and all dirt that he can on Kanan, it makes sense as a legitimate strategy. And, you know, at the same time, too, Kanan's had so much self-doubt.
Yeah.
And, you know, ever since he started teaching Ezra, he's been plagued with self-doubt.
Yeah.
And then with his injury, he was plagued with even more self-doubt. Like, it's no wonder that, of course, Maul would want to use that as, like, as leverage to get him out of the way.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and just to clarify for the people in the chat who are like, no, Maul didn't know his name because of pulling it out of Hera's head. I agree. I do agree. I believe Andrew Fedge said that it's sort of like yes and no. Like, it seemed like he just pulled it out of Hera's head, but at the same time, it also implied that like he knows some of this history, and I do totally agree with you that is in fact the case.
I mean, he was around during the Clone Wars.
That's absolutely true.
You know, prior to episode 1, he was working with the Chancellor.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm sure he would know a ton about the Jedi.
Yeah, I guess that what for me, I sort of wonder if he. Like, I have no doubt that he knew who Caleb Doom was, but I just wonder if, like, Hera's presence and, you know, him probing around in her mind just confirmed
just
for
like,
him.
Oh, okay, yeah, it was that guy.
That is that guy.
But
yeah,
like,
you know what I mean?
But at the same time, I'm not sure that he would know Caleb by name, you know, just because he was just a Padawan at that point. You know, he was just kind of a nobody Padawan.
Absolutely.
Why would that name at all be important to him?
Yeah. And now, and one of the things that I really enjoyed about this episode was how much we were kind of portraying Kanan in the light of really being a Jedi Master. I mean, Ezra calls him Master in this episode, and I got like just like heart feels
just verklempt.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. No. Probably nobody's ever called him that before. Cause
I certainly don't particularly remember Ezra saying yes, Master, with as much
conviction.
Yes, like he definitely meant it when he called him Master in this episode.
I would have to go back and see if he ever did previously, but it never stuck out to me.
Yeah, not in the way it did in this episode. So maybe in the chat you guys can recall.
Feel free to correct us.
Feel free to correct us because I got a lot of TV shows in my head besides this one.
But given the last episode, like this one has a little bit more like emotional and conviction behind it. You know, because again they were separated for a while and Kanan's come back, and so calling him Master is like a reaffirmation of their relationship.
Yeah. No, definitely. Though speaking of Masters, and there's a lot of buzz about this in the chat, that basically Maul in this episode refers to Ezra to Kanan as our apprentice. To suggest
like they have joint
custody. like they're sharing him.
Which I mean it makes sense because they've both taught him things.
Sure, absolutely.
And I think it was also an additional jab instead of just saying my apprentice, like our apprentice, like we're teaching him together.
Yeah.
He's learning from the both of us.
Well, in regards to the Master conversation, Timberwolf 410 says Ezra has called him Master, but only in passing, I think. And Megan agrees that Ezra did call Kanan Master a couple times during the first season, but can't really remember the specifics of it. But I still think that, you know, this is one of the first times where you're sort of feeling the emotional weight of that title.
Yeah, and again, he's coming into his own as a man, and
as
you know, as an adult, like making that choice to follow Kanan. It's a little different than when you're just a kid and you're just going along with it.
Though how interesting was his confrontation with Maul, where he was like, "Oh, Ezra, you know, what is it that you want to do?" He's like, "Well, obviously, I want to destroy the Sith and save the Jedi." And he's like, oh, "That's adorable. You're so ambitious."
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And you gotta love a villain like Maul right now too, because when Ezra asks him in return, he's like, "What do you want?" And Maul is just like, "I just want one thing. Hope."
I know.
And it's like, I have some thoughts on that, because on the one hand, there's again we talked about it in the season finale last you know, at the end of the last season, that there's so much sincerity behind Maul's quest,
for sure,
and you know, the amount of loss that he has suffered to get up to this point, and the fact that he was used and thrown away and used again, you know, you can understand everything he's feeling, and he's lost everything. But the thing he's hoping for is undoubtedly revenge.
Oh, I'm sure it is. But the thing is, and again, it's like you said, like there is this sort of twisted sincerity to the character of Maul. Now, let me ask you this. When he had the conversation with Ezra, wherein he's like, oh, I don't know, you turned on me and you basically tried to kill all my friends. He's like, I know, well, yes, I turned on them, but I would never turn on you.
Turn on you.
But like, do you believe him?
It's well, absolutely not, because the Sith relationship is always based on that. Yeah, we're a partnership. You know, there must always be two, but that relationship is based on the idea that eventually one of you will kill the other one and will have to replace said one. Like either the student will surpass the master, kill him, and then take on an apprentice, or the master will tire of his apprentice, discard them, and get a new one.
Yeah.
Like, so I would never betray you as long as it's convenient for me.
Exactly.
Is like in the fine print of that comment.
We appear to have Stephen Stanton in the chat, who is the voice of Tarkin.
Hello, Stephen.
Who says, Sam knocks it out of the park with Maul. He took a character with very few lines in the prequels and built a whole persona around him.
And what a persona it is.
It
oh my
sure
goodness.
is. And I was going to, like, he is the king, like, snarky bad. You know what I mean? Like, it'll be so interesting. And somebody mentioned earlier that they hope it doesn't go back and forth with villains between Thrawn and Maul all season. And I totally agree, because I would love to see, I mean, these two characters could not work together. They are complete opposites in terms of their sort of approach to things, and that Maul is such an emotional being. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and it makes sense. It's so interesting seeing a character who in the prequels was just the strong silent type.
Absolutely.
And he was awesome. But like the idea that he can like sit here and like monologue with the best of them.
Oh my gosh.
It's so cool.
I was actually literally just thinking about that when I was watching this episode. I was like, he barely said anything in the Phantom Menace. I had a moment where I was like, did he even talk?
I think he had like 2 lines.
Yeah.
But like now, and again, part of it is with age and experience and everything like that. But he really has come into his own as a force to be reckoned with. Because I think during the Clone Wars animated series, he was just angry. And yeah, he was smart and conniving and everything like that.
Sure. Well, and I mean, he did like take over the Mandalorians, and yeah, it was a whole thing.
He ruled their planet for a little while.
Yeah, he did.
Which we get a nod to in this episode.
Yes,
just
we did.
Is that true?
Yeah.
It was a thing. It happened.
Yep.
Mistakes were made. But yeah, like the fact that he's come into his own, and I'm just thinking right now and trying really hard not to like have my brain explode with all the geekiness, but right now in this series, in Rebels, we have something that I think nobody ever thought could exist in Star Wars, where we have Darth Maul, Thrawn, and Darth Vader.
I know!
All at the same time, crossing paths with these characters.
Totally. And I mean, the Emperor's chilling somewhere.
The Emperor's there,
he's
Tarkin's
kicking.
still around.
I know, seriously.
I have a lot of feelings right now about all of these players on the board at the same time.
Yes.
I don't know if they'll ever cross paths, but the fact that they're all in motion at once
Definitely.
is something for some reason I just never thought would happen.
Yep. Roz Mystica in the chat asks, Emma, Megan, I have a question for you. Pick one to stay, Thrawn or Maul. Well, if I had to fight them, I would prefer Maul because of the whole, like, he is an emotional being, and you can, like, bring somebody to the point of anger that they kind of get weakened or short-sighted. I mean, we see even in this episode that they take advantage of a moment of him being sort of distracted and are like, they get out of there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if we're talking about a fight, I would definitely rather go up against, I would lose in either scenario.
Either situation.
But like if we're talking about a fight, then yeah, I would rather go up against Maul because you can get him angry enough to the point where he would be short-sighted. I don't know if Thrawn is capable of getting angry. Like,
I don't know, man.
I don't know if that's even a possible thing. But in terms of like, if we were just saying like, hey, like one of these two characters had to stay.
Right.
In the series, it's hard not to say Maul because he's so interesting,
exactly,
and emotional and compelling and sympathetic.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, and that is what that for me. And don't get me wrong. Like, I love Thrawn. I'm so excited to see him on this season. He's so terrifying. You just need to see that on screen. But there is that level of sympathy with Maul.
There's that level of sympathy with Maul, but I would have to say, I would probably take Thrawn, to be honest. Again, I sympathize more with Maul, and I find him extremely compelling, but at the same time, I'm like, I haven't gotten Thrawn in an animated capacity before.
Sure.
So I kind of want to see what he does.
Right.
And, you know, all the stuff that he has in motion, you know, a guy who only ever who sees the bigger picture for what it is.
Yes.
You know, where Maul is just kind of more about his personal vendettas.
Absolutely, yeah. Maul is definitely not a big picture kind of guy.
You might have taken over a planet once. But
but just kind of circling back to the, you know, would Maul have betrayed Ezra, or does he mean it when he said, I never would have betrayed you? I really do believe that in his own way, he does mean it, because he thinks that everything he is doing for Ezra is for Ezra's own good.
Well, and to be fair too, he doesn't think of himself as a Sith anymore.
No.
He's just like, hey, this is how I learned how to use the Force. This is how I'll teach you how to use the Force. And, you know, there could be that because he was used and thrown away and has nothing left to fight for except revenge, it could be that in, again, that twisted way, he is looking for a family of sorts.
Yeah.
And maybe because he was betrayed when he was an apprentice, he's like,
Sure.
I would never betray my apprentice.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, it's like, do I think he would do things that were contrary to what Ezra actually wanted? Absolutely.
Like killing his friends.
Sure, but Maul didn't think that was hurting Ezra. Like, I truly believe that Maul thinks everything that he was doing, you know, on Malachor was for Ezra's own good.
Or even, or maybe not even like, or like that offhanded comment, just like, oh yeah, kill the prisoners.
Yeah, absolutely.
He'll thank me for it later. It's fine.
Dan Blaster in the chat has a really good question. Would you guys like to see a confrontation between Maul and the Emperor, or a flashback between them, considering the last time we saw them together was at the end of Clone Wars? Yeah. Obviously. I mean, and especially because, as we were talking about, it's like Maul was betrayed when he was an apprentice. And so, like, yes.
Didn't the Emperor kill his brother?
Yeah.
Am I remembering that correctly?
I believe so.
I'm pretty sure the Emperor super murdered his brother.
So, yeah.
I mean, it would be great. We've only gotten little tidbits of the Emperor throughout this series, so I don't know how close to the chest they want to play that character, along with Darth Vader for this season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we have Maul. Why not? Again, both characters are still in play at this particular point in the series.
And I think that the use of Maul being obviously in a more visible position than we ever get Vader or the Emperor, at least thus far, is really smart, because again, it's like you're taking this character who we saw in the prequels, who people really liked, just because, honestly, he was really cool looking.
He just looked really cool, and he had a double-edged lightsaber. That was awesome.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, it's so great to play with this villain who, you know, and again, like, now he's suddenly this super interesting character with all these interesting backstories and motivations, and I like the sort of quest to get the two holocrons and bring them together. Now, let me just bring this up, Megan, since you also were on the Sailor Moon Crystal after show with me. Two holocrons, bringing them together, way better than bringing together two silver crystals.
Yes!
2 silver crystals equals the end of the universe. 2 holocrons together, infinite knowledge.
Enlightenment.
Yes, though I have to say, the Bendu's words really, like, resonated with me, where he basically was like, once a thing is known, it cannot be unknown.
And there's a lot of truth to that. You know, there's a lot of truth, that old adage, ignorance is bliss. And who knows, it could be that, like, these particular folks just aren't prepared to know the secrets of the universe, you know,
Sure,
or the secrets
sure.
of the Force. Like, it might physically be too much for a person to contain. Like, they could have ended up comatose for like the rest of the series if they had been allowed to continue.
Yeah.
Like, it might have just been overwhelming.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Because I agree. I mean, there is, like you said, the adage of ignorance is bliss, and you want to know things to a certain extent, but you don't want to know everything.
Well, and there's also the kind of the Cassandra effect of like because
just because you know doesn't mean people believe you.
Yeah, just because you know people might not believe you, but you could also it could also be like Greek tragedy Oedipus thing, where you, in trying to avoid or accomplish your preconceived destiny, like actually end up becoming, you know, instrumental in your own destruction.
Absolutely.
Because we see that, you know, when they bring the holocrons together, we hear very vague 2 sons, and then you know, we have Maul going, he lives, which we're getting heavy allusions to Obi-Wan and Tatooine. And forgive me if I'm jumping ahead.
No,
but,
jump into it.
But like, it could be that the truth, like, that they were looking at, you know, is, you know, the person who will bring the Force back into balance, which is Luke, and he's on Tatooine.
Yeah.
And while, yes, Maul is most definitely preoccupied with Obi-Wan, Ezra
Sure.
might have been seeing, the key to the destruction of the Sith is, you know, Luke
This kid.
Skywalker, who
Yeah.
is on Tatooine right now.
Yeah.
But again, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, look what happened the last time we tried to fulfill a prophecy about bringing balance to the Force. Didn't end so well for the Jedi.
Yeah. That's very true. Yes, it ended very terribly.
Very badly.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that therein is sort of the trouble with the Force, is that it always has to be in balance. So
what does that even mean, guys?
It means that you've always that it's going to be this constant. I mean, it's just sort of an allegory in some ways for the never-ending epic struggle between good and evil.
Yeah. And it's so frustrating too, because like I feel like there are a lot of like ancillary Star Wars characters that like point out, or like Darth Revan, where it's like,
Right.
hey, the Force is pretty messed up. If the Force is what's causing us to be in constant conflict with one another.
Sure.
Maybe it'd be better if the Force just didn't exist at all. Then the universe could just go on its own accord.
Yep.
And it's like, you know, Darth Revan kind of had a point. There might be something to that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because, you know, now that in this season of Rebels, you know, we've introduced the character of the Bendu, who the Xehanorto pointed
so cool.
I know, I'm super cool. And the Xehanorto pointed out in the chat, he was like, what, has everybody just been overlooking this like major Force player in the universe forever?
I feel like he's just been hanging out on this spider planet. It's just like, whatever, it doesn't have anything to do with me.
Yeah.
But I was also really surprised to see him again so soon too.
Sure,
I kind of
yeah.
thought that we were
We're gonna put him to bed for a little while.
And same with the holocron. I didn't think we were gonna go back to it so quickly because
Yep.
we just put it away.
Yeah. But I did like that when Ezra initially got the Sith holocron back, and he and Kanan were together, and they're like, okay, we're gonna go to the Ghost, we're gonna save our friends, and Kanan gave him the choice. He's like, if you think that opening that Sith holocron, you're gonna learn something that's gonna help us save our friends, then do it.
Oh no, responsibility!
I know,
take it back.
I know. And Ezra was like, nah, that's cool. I'd rather listen to you.
Tell me what to do, Dad.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, in regards to certainly the suggestions we got that we're gonna potentially see Tatooine and one of 2 characters, possibly 2 characters.
Possibly 2.
Megan asks us, who would you prefer to see on the show, Obi-Wan or Luke?
It's so I would definitely prefer to see Obi-Wan.
Same.
Because, like, as much as we love Luke.
Of course.
The thing is his story hasn't started yet.
It hasn't started yet.
It starts with A New
and
Hope.
Also, we kind of know what's going on with Luke. He's being a dumb kid growing up on Tatooine. You know what I mean?
He's just, looking for some power converters. It's fine. He's just growing up and generally being bored. And that was kind of the point of where we come into his life with A New Hope, is he's just kind of bored with his life. And, like, this is the path he's going to take. And he wants to be a pilot and go on adventures and stuff like that. But, like, there's not really much to that. He's just lived a normal life, and that's the point. If suddenly, as a kid, we pull him into this adventure,
I
that
agree.
Takes away a lot from his hero's journey.
I definitely agree with you, because that's the thing about Star Wars, is it fits that classic hero's journey, like, to a T. I mean, there's, you've got the kid at the beginning of the story, just living a normal life, dreams of adventure. Suddenly he's thrust into adventure. We meet a mentor character.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And also, like, if we're talking about Obi-Wan, like, how frustrating, like, the idea he's there protecting Luke, wouldn't it be nice to see him actually protect Luke from something?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, Darth Maul, or, like, the Empire in some capacity? Because otherwise he's just being a hermit, not doing anything.
Absolutely. Well, and he must have been doing something, because everyone on Tatooine seems to know who he is, and they're like, he's that crazy old man.
He's that crazy hermit.
Yeah.
I wonder if he means old Ben.
Yeah, Xehanort says, his name is Ben Kenobi during this time frame. Who's this Obi-Wan you speak of? And everybody in the chat wants Darth Revan to be canon in Star Wars, and I totally agree with you, Mike's Vlogs, that it would be pretty spectacular to see an Old Republic series. Those games are fantastic. I really was very much in love with Carth Onasi when I played that game on Xbox when I was a kid. Moving on.
Again, it's one of those things where it's kind of hard, because of the nature of the Old Republic,
Sure.
the protagonist and everything like that. It's like, it's
Could
kind
go
of hard
either
to
way,
say
and yeah.
definitively, like, what you should make canon. But yeah, a few nods, like, I'll make Darth Revan canon. That I feel like could still work in the grand scheme of things.
Absolutely.
You never know. That it happened with Thrawn. It could happen, guys.
Yeah. Yep. And again, just, kind of coming back to the Bendu, and something that we definitely harped on a lot last week, but I still think holds true, is, like, it's so great to have this character that lies firmly in the middle.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that, and we were talking about the prophecy too, that the Jedi's version of bringing balance to the Force is completely light. Like, no more Sith, just Jedi. That's not balance.
No.
A character like the Bendu knows what balance is.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's less about, like, whether you're good or evil. It's more about, like, being sure and confident in yourself, and kind of, I guess, just generally content with the universe.
Yeah. And exactly. And something, again, that I know I've said many times on this show that I like so much about Star Wars Rebels is you do have the time to have these characters who do have the potential to land somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Or who are, very evil characters and don't necessarily have a tragic backstory a la Anakin Skywalker, where it was like he was basically like, you are the one true hope, and that just thrust him into a very bad place.
Or, yeah, and even, like, it goes back to how the original trilogy was going to end.
Yeah.
Originally, it wasn't going to be a happy-go-lucky sort of, yay, everybody wins scenario. It was going to end very much like a Western of Luke Skywalker walking off into the sunset, like, kind of in a morally ambiguous place.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see the universe embrace more characters like that, where it's like, hey, guys, the world isn't just black and white. There's a lot of,
There's many shades of gray.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's look at some questions and comments from the hashtag that we got going into the show today.
Because we had quite a few.
We had quite a few. So, at Bbuster Bill asks, who has the better beard, Kanan or Lion Turtle? Parentheses, Bendu.
I would say probably the Bendu. He's had a little bit more time to like grow it out.
Yeah, I agree. Though Kanan looks real nice with the beard.
It suits him.
It does.
Suits
it
him.
does.
Although I'm more about like the callous like mutton chops.
Sure.
But yeah, Kanan wears it well.
Yep, absolutely. Yes, the Xehanorto says, so an observation I had, Bendu seems like a more casual Yoda. Just as wise, but not as strict or as stern as the old Jedi Master. Again, I think that comes from all good is not balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, and again, when you get a character who has been around for as long as both Yoda and the Bendu, like, I like those older characters who still have that sense of humor of like, I'm gonna teach you, but I'm also gonna entertain myself while I do it.
Yeah, and I definitely see those like shades of Yoda, and gosh, Tom Baker is great as the Bendu.
He was so good.
Mean, guys, it's Tom Baker. I might have to wear my Tom Baker scarf sometime on the show.
Next
totally.
one for sure.
Yeah, definitely not.
His performance transcends time and space.
It does. Wow, that was dangerously close to a pun for you, Megan.
Let's never speak of this moment again. It never happened.
Yeah, nobody tell Katie. Xehanorto asks, opinions on what Maul and Ezra saw when the holocrons combined. I'm betting on a certain hermit chilling at the dunes, which of course we have discussed at length.
Which, that is kind of the obvious kind of go-to answer. I know a few people in the chat have brought up the possibility that it's not Obi-Wan, that it's actually somebody else. I feel like they're leaning more towards Obi-Wan, but
I agree.
I would also leave it to the show to subvert those expectations too.
I wouldn't. This is the thing: is I think it's Obi-Wan. I hope it's Obi-Wan because
I really want it to be
because
Obi-Wan.
I love that character, and yeah, that was another character that for me, like those are the things I remember when I went and saw Phantom Menace. I think I was about 14 when that movie came out. I have vivid memories of seeing it in the theaters, and like I was so in love with Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Who wasn't?
I mean, like, that was one of the first times in my lives where I remember feeling like I can't, he's so attractive. I can't look at the screen.
I can't even articulate it.
Yeah.
Well, and like how dreamy he was aside, it's also really cool to see, you know, a character like Obi-Wan, to see him in his youth when he's rambunctious
Absolutely.
and like, you know, deferring to Qui-Gon, and then and then like the prequels didn't do it very well, but the moments where he and Anakin actually do have like friendly banter and actually are acting as friends instead of like bickering or talking about how they're such great friends.
Right.
Like, he really did a great job in that performance.
Oh, absolutely,
really did.
absolutely.
And in those rare moments, you really buy it. You really buy their friendship.
And I mean, in the Clone Wars animated series too, it's like James Arnold Taylor and Matt Lanter did such a good job, like really playing with that and developing that. And so I just
developing all those things that the movies only talked about.
Right, exactly. Like I believed that they actually had this relationship in Clone Wars. And so it's almost like if you watch all of Clone Wars and then you watch the last film of the prequels. It makes
for a better viewing.
It makes for a much better viewing. It's way more heartbreaking when Obi-Wan like has his freak out about, you were the chosen one. Anyway, let's see. Xehanorto also asks, do you think that Ezra has truly forgiven Kanan, or that there is still some resentment for the half a year he was abandoned by him?
I think that, like, for when we talked about this a little bit last week, I feel like right now he's just so happy to have Kanan back.
I agree, and I actually felt in this episode like he was even more grateful. I mean, it comes down to that really lovely moment they had where he called him master, and that, and you know, Kanan saying to Ezra what Hera told Kanan to say to Ezra in the last episode, where he's like, it's not Ezra's fault, and she's like, yeah, I wish you would tell him that.
And even right now, even in this episode, we get like we get a lot of the source of like what is actually bothering Ezra, and it was the guilt he felt for Kanan going blind. And, you know, Kanan's like, I never blamed you. You need to forgive yourself at this point. So I think it's possible that especially if Ezra down the line gets wrapped up in his anger, like that hurt could come back of like, you left us, you abandoned us. But I think right now he's just so grateful to have Kanan back. And, you know, and if he can let go of his guilt for, for what happened to Kanan, I only see that as being something brought up really like down the line in like a moment of absolute rage or frustration or sorrow.
Absolutely. And then Mike's Vlogs asks, what did Maul mean when he said that he seeks hope?
We talked about this a little bit too.
Yeah.
I think it's that twisted sincerity. It's like he does want something to live for.
Yeah.
And if that thing happens, whether that's teaching Ezra and finding an apprentice in like a makeshift family in that sort of way, maybe. But more than likely, it's revenge.
Yeah.
Like if one thing is going to motivate Maul to do anything, it's gonna be revenge. It's gonna be taking out the people that ruined his life.
Part of me though is like, what if it's not revenge? Because that's again, I feel like this whole episode I've just been like, Maul is such a great character, but he really is. But there is like his own sort of like Maul sincerity, you kind of wonder.
Well, and maybe right now he feels like revenge isn't something available to him.
Right.
Because prior to this moment, theoretically, he thinks Obi-Wan Kenobi's dead, and that he'll never be able to get revenge on the Emperor. So maybe he's just like, I'm just looking for hope. I'm just looking for something to live for. And then the holocron shows him that Obi-Wan Kenobi is alive, and he's like, great, found it. I'm gonna go do that.
Yeah, you're right. Like, I'm gonna go get my revenge. Though part of me is also like hope for creating something other than the Sith, because he doesn't identify as Sith anymore. So now I'm like, okay, well, he keeps referring to Ezra as being his apprentice, so maybe he like sees Ezra as his hope of carrying on his own sort of twisted, evil neutral legacy.
Maybe it's hope for change. Because this is a guy who's been motivated by revenge for so long.
Yeah.
Maybe he feels like nothing else is available to him. So maybe deep down he hopes for something different.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm giving him more credit than I should.
You know what? I actually don't think so, because I think, again, he's too complex a character to simply mean I'm seeking hope, like I want to get revenge on everyone who's wronged me. In a way, yes, that is what he hopes for, but I do think it is a bigger picture kind of thing.
Like, is this all that I am? Is this all that I'll ever be? I hope I can be something different.
Yeah.
After I get revenge.
Absolutely. I mean, the revenge is definitely a part of it, because again, you have such an emotional creature in Maul. I mean, that's by definition almost. It's like the Sith embrace how those emotions make them feel, and it empowers them. But Maul is kind of like the extreme of that.
Yeah. And the thing is that even if you were to get revenge, what comes after that?
Sure.
So it's like just hope of like, hey, is there something to break this endless cycle?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it could be any number of things.
Yep. Yeah.
Maybe he's just hoping for a nice, condo he can settle down like on like Naboo.
Sure.
Like,
yep.
Just beachside condo.
Chilling by the water and go hang out with some Gungans and
I was thinking of like beachfront property and nice lovely sunsets.
Yeah.
I had I think blocked that the Gungans
existed.
In my mind. Yeah, maybe
no.
a different planet with like love. Coruscant's great.
Sure, yeah, nice urban setting.
Upscale apartment.
Yeah, you could have like a penthouse.
For.
Perfect. I think that's exactly what he meant by hope. All right, before we wrap things up, guys, I want to take a second to talk to you about iTunes.
Ooh.
I know. iTunes is a wonderful place where you can go and listen to our shows. We love that we have so many people who tune in live every week. We love hanging out with you here. So even if you are listening on iTunes, I highly recommend that you check us out on YouTube as well. But if you are watching on YouTube, you can also listen to us on iTunes. If you're like driving in your car and you're like, man, that Star Wars Rebels after show was so much fun, I want to relive it. You can do that by listening to us on iTunes. You can subscribe to us there. Also, you can leave us reviews in the iTunes store, which I really, really like. It makes us look legit and cool and convinces people that they should come into the studio and talk with us on the show. Hint, hint.
Nudge, nudge.
But we do have a new iTunes review from September 26th. of 2016. So is that timing wise? Yep, that would be new. That would have just popped up. I was like, our last one was from April 27th.
I feel like I always have to do the math whenever I come in here. I'm like,
I mean, especially
how
when
many weeks has it been since I've been in this studio?
Exactly, especially when you come back to a show. So I'm guessing that this review actually got written right before we went live with the new season, but it takes a minute for stuff to show up in iTunes. And also, if you are not a US iTunes store user and you leave us a review, we will not see it.
Yeah,
so screen cap it,
please do.
tweet it at us.
It still helps all our analytics and everything
Absolutely.
like that. So we still very much appreciate it.
It exists. We still want to see it.
And so please screen cap it and send it to us because we want to give you the recognition you deserve.
Yes. So this is Love This Podcast, 3 exclamation points by X Do Not Play X. I listen to this podcast after every episode. I love all the people on the panel and enjoy hearing their viewpoints. I hope they get to review season 3. Here we are.
Yay!
Yes. So now I'm like, did I read that last week? Anyway, we appreciate the feedback, guys. You rock. And again, if you do leave us a review in the iTunes store, we will give you a shout out on the show. Any last thoughts before we wrap this up here?
Just if this is just episode 2, like I am very, very intrigued as to what the rest of the season has in store. I'm hoping that we get like full momentum and that we kind of go minimal on the filler this season.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, a season where episode 2 is Darth Maul, I'm like, I'm okay with that. I'm okay. Can we keep going with that? That's super.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like this is the thing is something that I think that they did a really nice job of in the last season was kind of balancing those episodes of, okay, we're running at full speed. We're gonna, and then taking those moments to go back and have things like space whales. But I think we spent a lot of time on character development over the past couple of seasons, which is good. And we're seeing the fruits of that now in the characters as they're appearing. There were people in the chat sort of comparing Ezra in some ways to Ahsoka. I mean, Ahsoka started off very much as kind of like, they put this cute girl Jedi character in here to appeal to the kids, and then she became like a total badass over the course of Clone Wars as well. And then just continuing her story into Rebels was incredible.
It's so interesting seeing I don't think there are very many characters where people start off hating them to the degree that people hated Ahsoka and then ended up loving her to the degree that they love her.
I know. Yeah, it's so interesting. So before we wrap things up completely here, let's talk about some predictions for the next episode.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Thank you, Megan in the chat, for reminding me to do predictions. Well, let's see. The next episode is entitled, The Antilles Extraction? I think that's fairly obvious that we're going to see a little Wedge Antilles action, which is great.
So, that one, are we going to Tatooine? Is that where we're ultimately going?
I mean, basically,
this season?
what the preview, the little clip that Wedge Antilles is in, kind of insinuates is that it's gonna be the story of kind of how he ended up joining the rebellion.
Aww.
Yeah.
Aww.
Which will be super fun.
Sad.
Sad? Well.
Doomed prequelitis is what Katie would say.
Doomed prequelitis. Perfect. Wonderful.
Just aw, but it'll be fun because prior to things happening, he was a fun character. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's always, again, it's always nice to see them use characters who maybe just made a couple of appearances, who ultimately we know very little about, and expand their storylines in addition to creating all, because for Rebels especially, the main characters who we're following were all created for Star Wars Rebels. Mm-hmm. And so the way that they kind of managed to sprinkle in other characters from the series is pretty great.
It's kind of like when you bring your own toys and then other people are like, oh, hey, you can play with these too. And it's like, really?
Yep.
Ooh, it's going to be great.
Yep. Yep. So this is we'll get a
So
little.
what do you think is the inciting thing that makes him go, I want to join the rebellion?
Do
you think it's an inciting incident, or do you think it's just like, hey, I can get off Tatooine?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's anybody who why does anybody join the rebellion? You know what I mean? Like, it's such a broad question, and as somebody who I think will also kind of fall into that sort of classic hero model, I don't know. It could very much just be I want to fight. It's the right thing to do. I want to make a difference, but I
want to make a difference for sure.
Yeah.
I was bored probably won't suffice.
Yeah, no, I don't think I was bored is correct.
Is anyone's reason for joining the rebellion.
Yeah. But again, it's like you're taking a character who is, I mean, obviously like he's very active and he ends up forming, what is it called? Phantom Squadron? Please correct me if I'm wrong. But again, he's just like one of the rebel pilots. It's cool. So I don't know.
No, and again, it'll be really cool. And they mentioned a lot, in the last episode too, about building a fleet. And
yes.
I think bringing in a character like this is instrumental in building that fleet.
Yep. So it'll be very interesting to see. Alas, neither Megan or I will actually be here next week.
Katie will be flying solo.
Well, she won't be flying solo. We'll find other temporary pilots to
come to her aid.
Yes, we don't want to leave her out to dry, but we are going to bring this episode of the Star Wars Rebels After Show to a close. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Megan, where can people find you on the internet?
You guys can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @TheMenguin. That's TheMenguin. I'm also on a bunch of shows here at AfterBuzz and write articles for the movie Chick. That's Chick with 2 Ks. Be sure to check those out.
And my name is Emma Fyffe. I can be found all over the internet at my name, Emma Fyffe, EMMAFYFFE. You can find me on a bunch of shows here at AfterBuzz TV. I tweet about all of them. I tweet about everything I'm doing all the time. So just follow me on Twitter, guys. It's a super fun place to be. Again, Megan and I will not be here next week, but the show will be on. So do tune in. Same time, same place. Remember, you can always tweet at us using that hashtag ABTVRebels to talk to us throughout the week, throughout your lives, and let us know all of your thoughts on the show. And Megan and I will see you in 2 weeks, but Katie will see you here next week. Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.